Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our second part of our training series, Basics and Best Practices. Today, we're going to be highlighting and showcasing our central product, which is a wonderful solution. Alejandra Tubilla is going to be our host today, and she is a systems engineer out of our SoCal team, and your Southwest commercial team is hosting this call today. My name is Brianna Gennaro, and I am a territory manager out of Northern California, and we really appreciate your participation in this event. Just a few things I would like to mention before we get started. We do have a Q&A section, as well as the chat section has been enabled so that you can ask any questions that you might have during the session. We will answer those questions in writing after the event, unless Alejandra has some extra time at the end and she chooses to go through those questions. But I promise we will answer those questions in great detail. We have a dense presentation packed today. So again, please ask your questions so that we can get back to you. And we thank you very much for your participation. And without further ado, Alejandra, please take us away.
Thanks, Brianna. Hi, everyone. Good morning. As Brianna just mentioned, I'm a system engineer out of San Diego, and I'll be talking to you about Aruba Central, what we do in that platform, and we're going to go a little bit more in depth, not only on a presentation, but more on a demo. So with that, I'll get started, and hopefully I'll answer your questions as we go through them. Just gonna share my whole screen so we can start doing this. So as I mentioned, we're gonna talk about Aruba Central and our new architecture, AOS10, and how that changes from how we've been doing things up to now. Just to get started, we're talking about Aruba Central is part of what we called our Aruba Edge Services platform, or Aruba ESP, which basically sums up or englobes all of our different products, all different portfolio pieces in just one solution, which is a solution that is not one size fits all. With this solution, we can actually start targeting the different needs from our different customers, and just we're trying to make our portfolio fit your needs instead of adapting your needs to what we can have. With this, we have very important pillars, or our three most important, which is our unified infrastructure, which is our portfolio, which is a part of the connection part. We protect with zero trust policies or security policies and the automation. And everything is orchestrated through our cloud, through Aruba Central. So this is just a brief introduction of Aruba Central. With this, I'm gonna jump up to Aruba Central, which is our cloud-based management platform, which is what we call the heart of Aruba ESP.
I don't know if we're seeing your slides. Do you have slides for us? I apologize if I'm interrupting.
Yes. Sorry, I thought I was sharing already.
That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. So this is part of what I was talking about, Aruba ESP, or what our solution looks like. And with that, I'm just going to move on to Aruba Central part. So as I was telling you, we call it the heart of ESP, or the heart of our solution, because we can manage all of our portfolio from the cloud, which is our wired, wireless, and SD-WAN infrastructure. We can monitor and manage all our different portfolios in our different implementations or different deployments, that going from remote workers, small branches, to medium or larger branches, or cloud or campus, and even our data centers. And we have flexible deployments from this. From this single pane of glass platform, we can do everything from the onboarding, the provisioning, to all the orchestration, configuration, and management of our different platforms. And because it's native to cloud, or it's cloud built, we have microservices that allow us to manage everything and just break down the silos for a single unified infrastructure. As I was just mentioning, we can actually monitor everything from the cloud, which is our access points, which is our instant access point in our traditional architecture with Aruba AOS 8, and our APs on AOS 10. We can manage our switches, which is our legacy line, which is Aruba AOS, or a new line of switching, which is Aruba CX. We can also have our gateways in the cloud, which is for SD-WAN or SD branch. We can manage them from the cloud, and also in AOS 10, which will go more in depth as we go on. We can convert our what we call our traditional WLAN controllers. We can just turn them into gateways and manage everything from the cloud. And we can also manage all of our different connections, which are wired, wireless, and even remote connections through VPN. We can start monitoring everything from the cloud. Part of what makes our cloud very powerful and very different is the AIOps, or the analytics that we can have. We have analytics across our platform, which we'll see more in depth in the demo portion of this presentation, but we have what we call the AI search, which is basically normal language that we can use to search things within the platform and just even documentations from right there. We have our network insights that help us turn from a more kind of reactive kind of way of managing our networks to a much more proactive way of doing so. We have the A assist from within the platform. This means we can even launch tag cases and tickets from the same platform without having to go through ASP or any other ways. And then we start getting a lot of insights and application insights from within the platform, when we can actually see not just how our network looks like or the portion of our network, but more what our clients are looking at on our network, what they're doing when they're connecting to the network, and all these kinds of stuff. And everything like that, I'll just show you in the demo part. Before we move on to the platform, I just wanted to talk a little bit about our Aruba Central, how we are licensing everything. We have two different tiers of licenses, or two different types of licenses, which we have the Central Foundation license and the Advanced license. Within our Foundation license, we have all of our features, functionalities, and everything like that. We have even a lot of the AI insights built into that Foundation license. And what we gain with this advanced licensing is a more enhanced security features and analytics um, within that license. So basically, we get everything from onboarding, provisioning, management, and configuration, even guest access from our foundation licensing. And with our more advanced, we get everything on the foundation and just more advanced AI analytics and even security features. So we have those two licensing, and how we do this is we have two license. It's one license per every device or network device that we want to manage from the cloud. That will be meaning for access points, gateways, and even switches. It just depends on the type of switch, for example, the type of SQ for a license, but it's basically the way it works. One license per every networking device that we have that we want to manage from the cloud. Another very important piece of our Aruba Central portfolio, or Aruba Central platform, is our HPE GreenLake platform, which is our Edge to Cloud platform. Within this platform, or Central now lives within this platform, where we can actually have a complete cloud, which integrates with our HPE partners, or the side of HPE, which means compute and storage, everything from the same platform. We can have a unified platform where you can drive everything from one place. You could actually start managing all your different types of devices, which not only includes the networking devices, but also your storage and compute devices from the same platform. Basically, the idea is that this GreenLake Edge to Cloud platform help us orchestrate everything from compute, networking, and storage into one single platform. It allows us to have a cross portfolio within the same platform, basically. From here, what we're gonna do is actually manage everything from our device inventory, our users, permissions, everything like that, that we could actually manage from this platform. I don't know if that was a little bit too much information from now, but I'm gonna move from the slides and I'll just show you what this platform looks like. This is our HPE Green Lake platform, or how this looks like. As you can see here, we can have different services or different applications. One being Aruba Central, which is the one that we're going to focus on right now. But we could actually have all the data services, compute, and everything like that from our HPE side, server side as well. From this platform, as I was mentioning before, we can manage everything from onboarding new users, giving them specific access, onboarding our devices, applying licensing, everything like that. It's going to be managed through here. And then we can move on to Aruba Central for all the networking management side. So I'll just show you a little bit how this works. We have, from this main dashboard, we can launch different parts of the different parts of the platform, which is inviting new users, assigning access, onboarding devices, and managing subscriptions. From the device part, if we just go here onto devices, we're actually going to see our whole inventory, everything that we have registered onto the platform, and then we can assign it to the different applications that we have. From here, we can manage their licensing, and we can simply add new devices using their serial number and MAC addresses. And then after that, we just need to assign an application and then assign a subscription. The way of doing this is first we would go here to add a new device. We would select for our Aruba networking side, we will select networking devices and then just add them here with a serial number and a MAC address. And after we enter those two, we would just do next and add them onto our inventory. I'm not going to do that because I'll just show you how we can, after we go through this process, we can just add a new license. So from here, once we have added through that process that I just showed you a new device, we can just click on the new device. And here in Actions, we would assign it to a new application. So we're going to choose Aruba Central, choose our region, and then once it's finished, it will be assigned to our applications. And after that, we can just assign a new license, which are loaded and managed through the same platform. So through here, you would just go to Actions, apply a subscription, and then choose the different types of subscriptions that we have. As I was mentioning before, we can have for access points and all different types of devices, our foundation APs or our foundation license or an advanced license. So we can just choose between the ones that we have available. We could just select it and we will apply the subscription. After that, our devices, once they're connected onto the network and have access onto the internet and can connect to the platform, will be directly connected onto Aruba Central. Once our device is subscribed to Aruba Central, they will always take the configuration and everything that's been sent down through Aruba Central. So if you would like to make any changes locally, just do any switches or APs, all those changes will always be overridden by what it's been sent from Aruba Central. So this way we can actually make sure that our devices are taking the right configurations from the cloud, and then all the changes that could be tried to be done locally, those changes will actually not be made because they're actually subscribed onto Aruba Central. So this is the part of how we add a new device and apply our subscription so they can report onto Central. Another very important piece that I wanted to show you from here is how we add a new user and how we can add different permissions. So for this part, we will just go here to manage, where you could actually see the different things that you can do from this platform. In identity and access, we have three different things we can do from here. One, invite a new user, apply roles and permissions, and we have what we call resource restriction policies. What we can do here on this resource restriction policy is we could actually create different policies or different rules that we can add to a specific user, so we can give them different access onto the platform. You can give a single user, you can give them different permissions, one being a complete admin read and write permission for the whole platform. You can give them read-only access or read-only permissions onto your Aruba Central platform, or you could even nail it down to just give them access to a single group, which we'll talk about what that means later on. So from here, you could actually create a new restriction policies. Let's say let's test. And then you could actually choose the different applications, which will be one where your instance is loaded. And then you could choose here in add resources. And as you go through them, you could actually select the different groups that they can have access to. So once you choose the group, you can just add it and then finish that. So once you create that resource restriction policies, you would go back to identity and access. You could invite a new user, which is actually pretty simple. You'll just click here on invite users, add their email, select a different role, which is actually, let's say, I'll just try to, let's say, for example, I would add myself as a user. And then you could just select a different role. Let's say if we could do an account administrator or even an observer role, which means I would only give myself privilege of read only, and then you would just send the invite. And once that invite is sent, the user will receive an email confirming that they have been granted access to this account, and they can actually just log into the account. Once the user has been invited, as you can see here, you could just select the user and assign a different role. And once the role is assigned, you could actually assign a role, for example, to Aruba Central, because of the initial role or the initial permissions that you're sending out when you create a new user will be only for the GreenLake platform. And then you would have to add them permissions for Aruba Central so they can actually log in and go into Aruba Central and see all the networking side. You can just select a role, which is you can send them like as an administrator for Aruba Central, let's say, and we have what we call the limited resource access, which is basically applying the policy that we just created. So once we select that, we can go through here and select the policy that we just created. And with that, this particular user will only have access to the specific group that you just created. And with this, you can actually start giving permissions to the right people, to the right groups, so they can only see or manage the devices that are within their role or what they're supposed to be doing. And so with that, we basically cover a little of what we can do from a GreenLake platform, which is basically managing everything like on the back end for devices, licensing, and even user applications. So with this, I'm going to move on to Aruba Central, to the platform itself. So I'll just start showing you what that looks like. To launch this application, we would go through application and then just choose the Aruba Central application that we want to see. So once we click on Aruba Central, we just click launch, and the platform will take us directly onto our Aruba Central instance. And this is now Aruba Central within HPE GreenLake platform. So this is our main view or global view of Aruba Central and what this looks like. Within Aruba Central, we have different ways of organizing our devices, which I'll just tell you a little bit about it. We have three different ways of organizing our devices, which are groups, sites, and labels. Within groups, we would organize everything that we would like them to take the same configuration. So we'll just create a group, and everything on a configuration level will be done at a group level. Every device that is added onto the group will take the exact same configuration. We can always do configurations at a device level for more kind of specific configurations, such as IP addresses, host names, specific configurations on ports and things like that. But we would always try to make configurations at a group level so we can make sure we have a very a configuration across our different devices and not just this way we make sure every device has the same configuration and not a mismatches of configurations. So that will be what we use groups for. Then we have sites. Sites actually help us physically map our devices or where they're at physically. So you can have multiple sites within uh, your organization, which can be, for example, for a different within the same for different sites on different locations. If you want to manage your different locations from the same Aruba Central platform, which is what we're doing in this account. You could even have a different site for every different building, so you can actually see which devices are in each building. And it would just depend on the way you want to manage your devices. But this will also help a lot when we move on to the reporting and all the information we can see for the managing and monitoring of your devices. So that's what we can do on sites, which sites are only for monitoring purposes. We are not doing any configurations at a site level. Everything on configuration, as I mentioned before, will be at a group level. And finally, we have what we call labels. We can have, well, we can have up to 8 different labels for one device, where one device could only be in one group or one site. We can have different labels. And labels actually help us narrow down a little bit more what our devices are. So let's say within the building, we can add labels for floor one APs, for example. So we could actually monitor all those devices from the same group. Or if we're, let's say, on an office and you want to see like these APs belong to the finance department or they're around that area. So you could actually start creating those different labels so you can monitor your devices, manage them, and then you could actually start seeing insights from from different levels. And this will also play a very important role when you start making your own reports and all of that and all the information you're going to start seeing from within um, your your devices. So that's why it's very important that we have our groups and sites very organized. So this way we could actually take a lot more or take more advantage of what Aruba Central can offer. So not only for the group configurations where you do not have to start doing configurations one by one, yeah, for example, on the wired side, you could actually have different switches within the same group, create the same configuration. You would only do that configuration once, and then you make sure all your devices are taking the exact same configuration. So you would only have to go down and do more specific configurations once instead of configuring every switch every like one by one, and that helps a lot to escalate onto a more robust and bigger networks. And the same for sites. It would help us a lot just so that we can see a lot more of the insights that would actually make a little bit more sense once we go in depth on all the monitoring tools and everything we have within Aruba Central. To create a different group or a new site, it's very easy at a global level. We'll just go down here to an organization, and then from here we can manage everything. We can see all the groups we have created and create a new one, create a new site, or even a label. To create a new group, you'll just have to click on it. You will see the list of all the groups you already have. You can create here to add a group at the top right, and then just name a group. So I'll just do a demo test. And you could actually choose what that group will do. So you could have, it would just depend on the way you want to configure things. So if you want to create one group for each site, you could actually select, let's say for one group, we'll just have access points and switches at this point. We're not having any gateways. So you could just select the different types of devices that you would like to manage and configure within that group. Then you just do next. From here, for the access points part, it's very important that at this point we decide the type of architecture that we want to use, whether it is Aruba AOS 10 or AOS 8. That will cover the different things or the different architectures in a little while. So from here, you'll just choose the type of architecture. You could actually choose if it's going to be a campus branch. And then on the switching side, you can choose what type of switches do you have. So if you currently have a mix of AOSCX or AOSS, you can configure the group to support both. But if you only have, for example, AOSCX switches, you would just choose AOSCX, so you do not have all the options. And for the switching side, which I kind of forgot to mention, we have a way not just to manage them, but we can only monitor them from the cloud. So let's say you choose to go for a different within our portfolio to use Fabric Composer or NetEdit or any type of monitoring tools or management tools, you could actually use Aruba Central just monitoring your switches. So you will get all the telemetries, all the insights from Central, but any type of configuration and management can be done with a different platform locally. And with that, you'll just create this group, and once that group's added, you could actually start adding different devices onto your groups. And then for the site part, which is very important, we'll just need an actual address. Well, you'll have to create on your site. So for this, you'll just click in sites, and then here you can create click on new site, and with this, you'll just have to enter the specific address for your site. And once that site is added, which is very simple, you could actually click on multiple devices and just drag and drop and assign them to a different site. And this is an easy way to start managing all your devices. Once a site is created, as you can see here, you'll just create a new pin that will be on the map. So you could actually start seeing all that information from here. Now that we've covered the way of we kind of group or manage our devices, we can move on to a little bit more interesting parts of Aruba Central. This is our global view, our easy view, and from here we can actually see and manage how our devices or how our site's health from a very easy way of doing this. So as you can see here, we have different sites with different pins. We have a lot of them um, across our map. And with a very easy way of looking at, we can see if there's something wrong with our site or if everything's going completely well. So if I just click on here, I'll zoom in to our sites that we have here in California. This is this is my site. And as you can see here, and just putting the mouse hovering over the site, you can actually see the health of the site. Being red, it doesn't mean that something's completely wrong, but you could see that there might be an issue or there's a potential issue right there. So from here, you could actually see that we have two devices on this site, and these devices are up. We have clients connected, the uplinks are everything like that. It's okay, but the reason that we have that pin in red is because one of our tunnels from our SD-WAN arrangement are down. And with that, you can see that that's a potential issue, and that's why the pin has turned red. But if those three tunnels that we can see now down were up, you would see everything that it's running smoothly, that it's running okay, and you will start seeing those pins in green. So from here, you could actually start seeing the health of your site without even actually having to go more in depth into that. Um, I'll just show you a little bit more of what we can see at a site level. As I was mentioning before, this is more for monitoring purposes. From here, you can have actually statistics of how your devices are looking, how the site itself is looking. If there's been a lot of changes in configurations, for example, you could actually start seeing everything from here. Important to mention that all the information on Aruba Central is going to be stored up to 3 months. It depends really where you're at for. So for example, the AI insights, which we'll cover in a little bit, those can go back up to a month, but almost everywhere else, all the information is stored in Central for 3 months. So you could always go back from here and start going back to the time frame that actually is important to you. So right now we're in the last 3 hours, but if I go back, let's say for the last month, you'll actually start seeing a lot of different statistics of how that site looks like. So you can start seeing all that information at different on different time frames. on the summary, all the information that I'm showing you right now, this information, you can see it at a global level that would actually show you all that information from all the devices across the multiple sites that we have right now, or you can narrow them down to a specific site so you could actually see how that site is behaving, the usage within bandwidth, transmit powers, the number of clients are being connected from the different types of SSIDs and everything like that, you could actually start monitoring and seeing all this information. You could actually see which are the APs that are being most used, which are the users or the clients that are using more your network, everything like that. You could actually start seeing it from here. A very important part that we can do at a site level is that we can load our floor plans. This is a very simple floor plan that I'm going to show you, but you could actually start loading your floor plans as if you were, for all of you that have already used Airwave, we have taken that very powerful tool from Airwave and make it and added it to our platform in the cloud. So you could actually start seeing and monitoring and adding all your floor plans. You could add your deploy devices, so you could actually start seeing your heat maps, but you can also start adding um, APs that are gonna be deployed later on that are your plans, and you could actually start using the heat maps. It is a very useful tool, not the more specific, the most kind of accurate tool, but it gives you a very good idea of what your floor plans look like. So you could actually start seeing all that information from here. This is for our floor plan, sorry, and this is only we can only use or see this at a site level. Let me show you a little bit more interesting information for our topology. This is a very useful tool because the topology side, this is not a very interesting network. But from our topology side, you could actually start monitoring and managing all your devices. From here, you can start actually seeing how your devices are being connected to one another and how those uplinks or how those connections or the health of those connections are. So from here, you can see how the devices are being connected. If you click on them, if you click, for example, on the uplink, you could actually see from where to where they're being connected. You could actually even see the port to what they're connected. So this helps us have your topology up to date. You can always see how they're being connected, and you can even export this information from Aruba Central. So you could always have a very accurate or a very updated way of seeing your topology. From here, as you can see, there's a few devices on red. This means these devices are down or are not connected. And everything else that is in green, you can see that the connections are healthy, the connections are good. And all the devices that are in black are devices that we can see from their topology because this is built automatically through LLDP. You could see that they're connected onto your infrastructure, but they're not actually being managed by Aruba Central. So you could actually see all your infrastructure and the different types of devices that you're being connected, even though you are not managing them from Aruba Central. And this, as you can see, goes back for our SD-WAN or SD-branch arrangement through our wired and wireless devices. And if you click on one of the devices, it would actually, on the links, it would tell you a little bit more information of if the link is up or down, and you can always go down to that device in detail, and then just from here go to a more specific device or to the device, the details, or you could actually just click on it and it will take you back on Aruba Central in the platform where that device is located at, so you could actually see more specific information. So this is what we can see on the topology side. So with this, I'll just move back to my slides so we can talk a little bit more about Aruba Central on our infrastructure on AOS10, just because that will make a little bit more sense as we move on through the different demos. So with our Aruba AOS10 is our new way of doing things or a new way of infrastructure. which is basically moving or unifying the operating system into Aruba Central, which goes for Aruba Instant Controllerless or Controller WLANs, which means, as I was mentioning at the beginning, I think we can manage from Aruba Central our APs that before in AOS 10, in AOS 6 or AOS 8, as you remember, we can call them instant APs, which basically would just create a cluster where one of the APs will function as a virtual controller and would actually take a lot of the functionalities that the controller does. And with that, we would need one AP that will have a little bit more of task to do on a day-to-day basis. We would have our mobility conductor or controller-based WLANs, where we would have the controller, they would take all that kinds of load work, the normal way of doing WLAN deployments, and then we have the SD branch head-end gateways. With this, we're taking everything or all these three types of deployments onto the cloud, onto Aruba AOS 10. With these deployments, we're not only taking our instant APs as we were doing it before, but we're also taking our controllers and converting them on what we call now gateways in Aruba Central. What we're doing basically is we're taking all the different functionalities that our virtual controllers and our controllers were doing, things such as air match, client match, key management for roaming purposes, air groups, everything like that that was doing on-prem by our different devices, it's taking onto the cloud, and Aruba Central is taking that workload. So we're not only doing now configurations and monitoring and all that part of troubleshooting and reporting from Aruba Central, but we're actually taking these different tasks from our on-prem devices onto the cloud, and this helps us be be more scalable and have a bigger number of devices on a single cluster, and even our controllers and gateways can double up in size of the different or the kinds of devices that they can manage or the amount of devices that they can manage. So we're basically leaving our data planes locally. We're not taking any data onto the network, but we're actually just taking the control plane up to the cloud to Aruba Central. One of the main questions that always comes up is what happens if we lose connectivity to the cloud? Our networks will continue to work as they should without the connection to Aruba Central. What we have is we have an 8-hour time of recovery, basically for example, our key management and everything like that. All our keys are going to be shared within the APs, so you could actually do roaming and do all the things that our network is supposed to do, but you have like that 8-hour window to manage it before the key start losing. So basically we have a full operational day to make sure that we have connection back to our infrastructure. So we're not going to lose our network if Aruba Central for some reason goes down. Your network will continue to work. And even after that, we might lose a little bit of performance regarding roaming, but still our networks will continue to work. That different from what we were doing with our instant APs, for example, all that workload, sorry, that we were seeing here on the green on the right side, everything like that was doing our controllers and virtual controllers were taking that workload. And with this, we're taking that to the cloud. So we can have deployments with APs only that would change from instant APs where they create a cluster and they have a virtual controller. We would have standalone APs not doing a cluster between themselves. So uh, you can have even a bigger network. You could have up to 2,000 APs in a single network. That before we have a more limited amount of devices that could join a cluster. That's for our instant APs. For our gateways, or what we call them now, our controllers, we would change them into gateways where they would actually start being managing from the cloud. And that will be for more medium to large enterprise campuses, as you can see on the slide, or to our SD branch. And our gateways can actually help us continue doing all the tunneling traffic for advanced services that we were doing on-prem. With our controllers, we can create the different segmentations and WLANs, create VLANs and everything like that. we would just be managing it from the cloud, and Aruba Central will still control a lot of the things that we just talked about, but we could actually have all the benefits of having a controller on your network, but with your gateways managed and uh, administered by Aruba Central, which, as you can see here, we could actually create more scalable or more bigger networks just because we can have uh, different or a lot more of APs or double the capacities almost of the gateways in the cloud that we have them on-prem, just because Aruba Central is taking a lot of the workload from on-prem solutions onto the cloud. So hopefully this was clear enough. And if you have any questions, we can just address them at the end. With this, we have different ways of doing our SSIDs, or three different types of configuring or SSID modes, which is we have a bridge mode SSID, where we could actually, that would be more for like, for example, instant APs, where we would actually just create a bridge from the AP onto the cloud, and all our clients connected. All the traffic goes directly onto the cloud. We have a tunnel mode SSID, where we would actually tunnel the traffic back to the gateway, and then afterwards go up out to the internet, where we could actually just tunnel all the traffic from our different clients, that being wired and wireless clients. Or we have a mixed mode, which is a tunnel slash bridge mode, where we would only tunnel the required traffic back to the gateways, and then just bridge the other type of traffic that does not need to be tunneled onto the gateways. So if we're having a deployment with APs and gateways, this will be our more um, like the traditional way of doing it, or our most common way of doing it will be a mixed mode. But if we're just doing instant APs, for example, that will be completely a bridge mode or an SSID. So with these different types of SSIDs that we have here, I'll just go back onto Aruba Central so I can show you a little bit more on how we can um, do that information and how we can actually create one SSID. So if you are just testing out Aruba Central or anything like that, you can easily create an SSID and just configure it very easily. So we're back on Aruba Central platform, and I'll just go to that demo test group that we just created. We do not have any devices in here, but we could actually start configuring. Once we start configuring, that helps a lot for a very easy deployment, or a very zero touch provisioning, deployments, where you could actually start creating all your configurations before you even get your devices. And once your devices, and once you have your devices, and once you plug them in, subscribe them onto Aruba Central, you'll just have that configuration ready to go and just start working with them. So as I mentioned before, all of our configurations are done at a group level. So the first thing we need to do is just go onto our group, and we select it here, as you can see. We would go onto devices and onto configuration mode. For every group, you'll just have to add a new password, which is the management password for the devices. So once you create that password, if you need to log on to one of the devices from the console that you can do from Aruba Central, you'll just need that password. That will be like your admin password onto the devices. So once you go onto the configuration, onto WLANs, you could just click on Add an SSID, and then this very easy workflow will guide you to the different steps to just configure an SSID very easily. So you would go on to creating a name for this SSID. I'll just do a test name. And on advanced settings, you could actually start configuring the different parameters for that SSID, which would be like broadcasting, transmit rates, and everything like that. I'll just leave it for now on default. And then here on the VLAN is where you'll choose between our three different types of SSIDs, which could be the bridge, the tunneled, or the mixed type of SSIDs. For a bridge SSID, you could actually create leave it on a native VLAN or just select a specific VLAN you would like to traffic all that. For tunneled or mixed, you would need a cluster for your controller to where all the traffic it's going to be tunneled to. But for now, we'll just leave it at a native VLAN. And then moving on to the security part, we have different options for um, the authentication onto your SSID. We would have enterprise, which will be, for example, for data to 1x, if we want to connect that to an Active Directory, stuff like that. That will be at an enterprise level. If we do a personal, that will be a WPA2 or WPA3. As you can see here, we have different ways of doing that. You could just select the way of authentication of the key management of it. On the visitor side, we could just select different captive portals and all the guests. As we mentioned on the licensing part, all the guest services or the guest authentication are included on our foundation license. So you could actually start creating captive portals and even social logins from within Aruba Central. And then we have the open networks where you actually do not need to add any type of authentications to connect onto the network. But for now, let's just leave it at personal. We can create our um, passphrase or password. You could actually see the password you just created, and then you would just have to um, see here. And then on advanced settings, you could actually start configuring more advanced situations, like if you want to do MAC authentication after that, MAC hatching, and all that types of information, or that types of configuration, you could actually start configuring from here. And once your passwords match, you could just do next, and that will be for the authentication part. And then a very interesting part we have here is the access rules. As you may know, if you're an Aruba customer, we have also in controllers the policy enforcement firewalls, which we also have here in Aruba Central with our APs, where you could actually start creating rules and access rules onto your network. We can do it in a role-based, network-based, or we can leave it completely open. On a network-based, you could actually start creating your own rules here and apply them onto your SSID. This will help us create, we have like this initial firewall on the APs and will help us control or manage or the first kind of connection onto your network. So you do not have to go all the way through your network onto your firewall before denying an access to a specific, let's say, web page or streaming services or something like that. We can actually start blocking and controlling everything from the AP itself. So from here, you can just add a new rule, and we have different types of rule. That could be access control. You can create a block a page or your URL, assign a different VLAN. But for now, let's just say access control. We have different ways of creating these rules. We can do from a specific network. We can do an application category. So we could just block, let's say, streaming completely if you would like to do that. Or we can even do a more specific. So let's say I want to block Netflix, for example. We could actually narrow down the specific or the different types of applications. This service is, we have like a third-party service that helps us identify all the different applications in our network. So it's a company called Bright Cloud that actually just like their sole purpose is to start doing all that application control and visibility. So with this, we can make sure that all our applications are up to date, and it's not something that we do on ourselves. So we could actually do like uh, more specific or newer applications like TikTok, for example, or stuff like that. Because we're using a third party, we can always ensure that we're on like the most updated list of all the different applications. So we could actually start doing from a different applications, and you can add as many as you want. We can do from app category as well. So if we would like to just block, for example, adult content or gambling, games, all those types of stuff, we would just select everything that we want to block, and then we can just deny it. We can deny it completely, or we could actually start prioritizing traffic from within these rules. So this gives us a lot of flexibility so we can make our networks as specific or narrow them down as much as we want from the main access or the first access on from within our APs. So with that, let's just say I'll just create the different rules. And as you can see them here, you could actually start seeing the rules being created on the SSID, and then you could actually start managing them like you would do ACLs. So if you would just like to move the order of them, you could just drag and drop them and then just put them on the right order that you would like them to be. So once we have all our rules, all our different on a network based or even role based, once we have all our rules and everything looks good, we can just click next. And this will give us a very uh, overall summary, of what our network or our SSID would look like. And once we say like, okay, this is okay, this is what we want, we can just do finish. And just like that, we just created an SSID. And then once we have all the APs within the same group, all the APs will take that configuration. And from here, we can have up to 16 different SSIDs created for different purposes. And then you could actually just turn them on and off depending on the use case. So if you want to say, we've seen it with different customers that they want to do um, they change captive portals depending on the season, for example, or depending on promotions and stuff like that. You do not have to create the new SSID every time. You could just have one SSID created and then just turn it on and off just as you need them to be. So if you have like a special event where you just need guest access, you can just turn it on, and then if that if that's not something that you require to have turned on all the time, you could just manage them through here and just turn them on and off. This is just for the SSID, but we could also um, do for every different types of configuration, being that from the APs, how if we want to configure the different radios, interfaces, securities, everything like that, you can do it through here to the same menu configuration within the group on device level and then configuration. So we could actually start managing all of our configurations from here. So yeah, so this is part of the configuration we can do at a group level. The same goes for switches. We have on the switching side, we have a very easy way of configuring things, which can be the same as the APs, very useful workflows with very base configurations. And then if we want to configure a little bit more in depth, we always have the multi-edit option to create just more in-depth configurations or more kind of CLI way of configuring switches if you'd like that part more than just GUI-based workflows. So that sums up a little bit of our configuration side. So I'll just move on to our more interesting part of Aruba Central, which is all the AI Insight, application visibility, connectivity, and everything like that. So for that part, I'll just move on. I'm right now at a global view, and I'll just show you what we mean for AI Insights. On our AI Insights, it will tell us a lot of how the network is been going or how the network is working from the networking perspective. And we could actually start seeing all the different problems, all the different scenarios that are being affected. This is at a global view, so we'll see all the different insights from the our whole account that are affecting our different types of devices. But you could see insights from at a group level, at a site level, or even at a device level. So I'll just show you a little bit more. From these AI insights, we have different severities. So red being our most critical one. And then as we go down to the yellow, we will see that it's something that we need to take care of, but it's not as um, it's not as critical as the red ones. So as you can see here, for example, let's just do our outdoor clients are being impacted by Wi-Fi performance. This is an insight that's been going on for a little. So this insight will actually tell us where the problem is or what the problem is, which, for example, on this case, which SSID is being affected and what the recommendation on these changes are. And depending on the different type of insights, or the different things that or the recommendations are, we could actually make Central make those changes for you. So on this particular example, for example, the recommendation is to change the probe and authentication thresholds. And as you can see here, you'll see all the recommendations. And this is kind of a configuration that Central can actually take care of. So we have this option to update. So this particular insight, if you just click on update, you're actually given permission to Central to make those changes in the configuration for you. And once you update the changes, Central will create a report for this particular insight. And then after a week, you would actually get a report on how the network was performing before the changes were made, and then a report after the change has been made. And with this, you could actually choose to keep the changes or revert back to the configuration that they were before. So in this way, we could actually make Central do these changes and make your network better by itself. So from here, you could actually see um, what the problem is, which APs are being impacted. So you could actually start seeing all that information. You could even see the clients are being impacted. So this is for a more um, global view of our insights. But if we narrow them down, we can even have, depending on the infrastructure that we have on Central, but we can even have insights on cabling. Let's say like there's a problem, like a layer one even problem on your network that is impacting on this side, is impacting these types of switches, and you just need to check your cabling. So it's kind of the things that we can see from within the insights, and it would actually start telling you what the problem was and what the changes or the recommended changes, sorry, are on your network. And with this, you could actually start seeing your network get better and better. You could see from here which are the sites that are being impacted, which APs, even which clients are being impacted, or in this case, even the channels that are being impacted. And this is one of the other reasons that help a lot, just to have all our devices grouped or correctly mapped to their groups and sites. So we could actually start taking advantage of these different insights and make these changes and make our network better. So this is for our AI insights kind of view. Other things that we have on AI Insights, as I was mentioning on the slides before, we have a search bar, which is a normal language search bar, where you could actually search, type in anything, and then you start seeing information. You could start typing things like from my specific user, as you can see here. If I just type my user within the account and I just click enter, it would actually come back with different cards of the information that they have on that particular user. So you could see different clients are being connected, and you can see the information like a very like summary of that specific user, even device. You could actually do that by a serial number, by site, or stuff like that. So you could actually start looking for things within the network. And if you would like to see more in depth, you could just click on that card, and it would actually take you to the part within the platform where you can see that information on that device itself. So you could actually start seeing that information, and that just went through the search bar. So if you do not want to go, or do you not know where to look at for that particular information, you could just use the search bar, and it will take you anywhere within the platform that you need to be. And then if you want to say, like, I don't know how to configure an SSID, you can just type in here, as you can see, and it will take you to different types of information within the platform. So we have different ways of using the search bar. If you just type how to configure an SSID, we have three different types of results. The view result, where they would actually take you within the platform where you need to configure that SSID, and then you just can take it from there. You have the guide me, which will be more of a step-by-step of how to configure that at a default group. So you could actually just click on it, and it will take you to what we just went through, like where on your group you would have to create an SSID and everything like that. And then we have the read, where we have all the different documentation parts of Aruba Central. Not just Aruba Central, but also Aruba products. in general. So you could type anything like how to configure an SSID. I just needed the other day to make sure that one of our models of APs were supported on AOS10. So I just typed the 310 AOS10, and it would actually take you to that part on the documentation where you could actually see information on that particular type or that particular information that you were looking for. So the AI, so the search bar, it's very useful. It's always going to be there, so you could actually start using it to monitor and troubleshoot everything, or you could just ask different stuff and it will take you to the right place at the right time. We also have that bell for the notifications where they would actually tell you all the more critical alerts on your account without actually having to go back onto your alerts and events, which we will cover in a little while. You could actually start seeing all that information, all the major notifications or alerts on your platform. And then we have the question mark, which is a very easy way of getting to support. From here, you can go to the documentation center, you can ask for help. You can even open up a new tag case from within Aruba Central, or even start a conversation with a support agent. And the same thing, this support, it's all the way through the platform. So it doesn't matter where you're at within the platform, you could actually start taking advantage of our different resources and tools within the platform. So with this, I'll just move on to a little bit more of visibility and everything we can see within um, our platform. From here, we can manage our different clients or different clients connected onto the network. That could be either wireless, wired, or even remote clients connected onto your network. You can see up to 3 months all the different clients that have been connected. You can narrow it down through the last 3 hours. So you could actually start seeing all that information from across your platform. All this information on clients, you could see it at a global view, you could see it at a group site, or even at a label view, all the devices connecting to the specific or to the different types of devices. As you can see here, we will get just a list of all the different devices. You could see how they're being connected. If from here you can see if they are wireless, if they are wired. And if I just go back, let's say for a week, we might just see a couple remote. As you can see here, we have some remote clients connecting onto our network. From here, you could see basic information on the devices, from IP addresses to the VLANs that they're being connected to the type of, to the specific APs, for example, that they're being connected, or even the switch that they're connecting to. And from here, we can narrow it down to a more specific view of the device itself. So I'll just click on a device and you could actually see how they're being connected. So we can see the data path from the client onto which SSID they're connecting to and which APs. You could see information on the device itself, like host name, IP addresses, what type of device it is. So as you can see here is a computer, a Mac OS. So you could actually start seeing specific information on the device itself. You could even see how they're connecting, if they're connecting on the 2.4, on the 5, or even on the 6 gigahertz band. So you start seeing information on this device itself, and you could actually start seeing bandwidth usage or the throughput that's being used for this device itself. If we would have any insights on this device, which for clients, sometimes we can see some of the insights that we were seeing at a global level. We can actually see the insights that are impacting this particular client. And then we have the profile for this particular client. So what we're creating is a more specific or more in-depth information on the client itself. So we could actually start seeing more information than just the family and the Mac or the or the operating system for this particular client. So we could actually start seeing a little bit more information on this particular client itself. So we can see information on the client, and then I'll just go back to a global view where we have the same kind of client profile that I was just showing you, but at a more global level. From here on a client's profile, we could actually start seeing the type of devices that are being connected onto your network and how many of these devices are being connected. So all these are devices that are being classified, but even if they're we cannot classify them, you'll just see them on the generic tab, where we could actually have complete visibility or end-to-end visibility of all our devices that are being connected across our account. So you can see from iPhones to our user experience inside devices. We can even see other vendor types of devices. So you could actually start monitoring and managing from here all the different types of devices that you can see on connected onto your different networks. Part of the other visibility that we have here is our application visibility. This will help us say or view everything that's being done within our platform, not just what clients are connecting on the network, but what they're doing within our network. So this particular kind of information on the application side, it's been very useful for different organizations, where you could actually see what they're using it for. So we've seen this very useful for different types of customers. Like, let's say there was this one amusement park here in Mexico, where they were actually looking at what their people were doing within their network, and they saw that their most used application was Netflix on one of the biggest amusement parks. So you could see, they could tell from there that something was not quite right. So you could actually start leveraging all the information that we're already generating within their platform, and then just exploit them, and then for the different areas that could be management, administration, or even marketing areas, they could actually leverage all that information from within Aruba Central, or even for taking action on this. So you could see, we also saw with one of our clients where they were all like, there was this one user that was always complaining about the network not working and it was too slow. And when they went in, they saw that multiple clients were streaming on the office. So they could actually take action from here because they were looking at what they were doing within the network. And they could start creating all those rules that we were just talking about, and just managing the network so that it would fit best their operations. So these applications visibility not only gives us as the networking responsibles valuable information, but it could be valuable information across the entire organization. So this is part of the visibility that we can have through here. Another good tool that we can have is the UCC monitor, which this is included on the advanced licensing, but we could actually start monitoring voice over IP calls, different types of calls, even Teams calls. We could actually start monitoring them from the dashboard. So this also gives us a lot of information for our management side of what we can do and how the network is being used and the performance of it. So this is a lot of part of the information that we can see that gives us a lot of visibility within the platform. And a very important part that we also have here is our guest access. As we were talking before, the guest access is included on our foundation license, but we could actually start creating different splash pages or captive portals on on the platform, where you could just create the users could onboard and create their own profiles on their network. You could just do social logging and stuff like that. You can manage everything through here. We can have an information. I don't think we have a lot here, but you could see information on on the visitors that are being used here. As you can see, for example, on the account, you could see all the information on the different users that been logged on to your network, and then you could actually download that information and share with different departments that makes the most sense to share this information with. So we could, the same as with the applications, we can actually start leveraging all the information that we're already generating within Aruba Central, and just share it with the different departments within an organization. very useful thing that we also have here is the presence analytics. This part is also covered on the foundation license, and they would actually start telling us a little bit more information at a site level of the different guests or users that are being connected onto the network. We could actually, if I go more in depth, you could actually see information of what we call unique passerbys. That would be unique users that are within the radius of your network but are not connecting. You could see which ones are connecting regularly into your network, so they're like loyal visitors, how much time they stay in your network and stuff like that. And this has helped a lot of different businesses just to see if like the type of users that they have, if they have clients, if they have, sorry, loyal clients connecting or returning to their businesses all the time. So all these types of presence analytics and information has also been proven to be very useful for different types of organizations. So we have a lot of visibility within our sites. And if I just go to summary, we just have like a more a nicer view of all this information. So you could actually start seeing information on your different kinds of users that are being connected or not being connected, but that are on the same radius within the network. So this is part of all the visibility and all the tools that we can give us a lot of visibility of not only how our network is performing, but also what type or more specific information on the client side and the usage that they're giving our network. Another part of a lot of the visibility that we can see here is all this part with the Wi-Fi connectivity. We can see a lot of the insights of what this first connection or it's going for our client. So you could actually see the statistics and information on, as you can see here, association, authentication, even DHCP and DNS. So you could actually start seeing if, for example, you start having failures on authentication. You'll start seeing all this information here. And as you can see on the AI insights, you would see which ones are being affected for these types of metrics, and you could just click on it and it will take you back onto the AI insights and see um, a little bit more in depth of the situation and who is being affected by it. So as we mentioned before, we could even see a client list of all the different users that are being affected by this type of insights or situations within our network. So this gives us like a very global view of all the information we can see from within Aruba Central, but we have a lot of other tools that we can use for the management part. We have things like from alerts and events, where we can actually generate or configure our different alerts for the account itself. You can configure these events so you could show them as critical as you want them. You can even configure the different thresholds so you can get alerted on as much or as little as you want on the different things or different situations as you that happen across your platform. For this, we can configure it here, and we have different alerts. We have different categories, and within the different categories, we have different types of alerts that we can configure. That would be one, for example, for the access points. We can create a different alert when one of the APs is disconnected. If you or if Aruba Central is detecting any rogue APs, you could actually get alerted on all these types of information. We can have alerts on hardware too. So for an AP CPU utilization, but for switches, we can get alerted on temperatures, on PoE utilization, and all these types of information. You can configure them as much as you want, which has proven to be very useful. So let's say for if we want to configure the switch hardware failure, if I just click on the plus sign, I would just turn it on with the default configuration, which you could actually here create a list of default recipients where every time an alert happens, they can receive an email that something is happening. But if I just click on the switch hardware failure, you could actually configure it a little bit more. You could select how severe that alert it's going to be. So it could be, like, for example, critical. And then this is part of the things that I was mentioning right at the beginning, where we were talking about the different ways of grouping our devices, where this would actually be very helpful. You could create an alert for everything, or if you have, for example, if you've seen that a particular site is being affected by something specifically, you can just go in, create a different alert, and then select at which level you would like to get alerted on. So you could do it at a group level. You could just select the different groups. You could create a label. So all the devices within the label would be, you could get alerted on, and or even at a device level, you could actually select by host name which device you want to get alerted on. So you can get, for example, a particular device that you want to make sure that it's always up or stuff like that. You could actually start configure all your alerts from here. And we have three different ways of getting these alerts, which I will explain a little bit more in depth in a while. But we have three different ways to get those notifications. One can be through email. So if you just click on email, you would have the default recipients that I was just telling you about, where if you just type in an email there and this is enabled, every time something happens or an alert is triggered, they will get an email. But you could always add a different recipient to get different alerts. So within your team, for example, you could just, the person responsible for the switching could just get alerted on the switching and does not need to get alerted on the APs if that's not something that they should get alerted on. So you could actually just start managing if you want to get emails. We have another option, which is streaming, or what we call streaming APIs, which I'll just explain a little bit more in depth in a while. But basically, what we have here is with streaming APIs, you will just, every time something happens, you will get triggered information and it will be sent through your own dashboard through the streaming APIs. Or we have what we call webhooks, which is also there's different platforms, open source even platforms, where you could create a webhook and you could just create a very dedicated channel of communication for the different webhooks so you can get alerted on. So it would just be depending on the preference of how you want to get alerted on, so you could just even configure everything like that. And this is just for hardware failure if something fails. But even if you want to do like CPU or memory utilization and stuff like that, you could actually configure the thresholds and see which is critical for you, which percentage. And you can even add more than one value. So you can get an alert on critical, major, minor, and even a warning depending on the memory utilization of your hardware. So it would just depend on how much or how little you want to get alerted on, but you could actually start getting all that information from Central. And you could actually start seeing all these alerts and all of the things that are going on without you even having to be on the platform all the time. So you'll just start getting this as soon as something happens, you'll just start getting alerted on, and you do not have to go or to always be logged in into Aruba Central refreshing to see these kinds of information happening. Another very powerful tool that we have here on Aruba Central would be the audit trail. The audit trail would actually keep track of everything that's happening inside the account. So you would see all changes that are being made up to a month. So you could actually see when the change was made, which or who made the changes, which devices are being affected by the changes, and if it was successful or not. So for example, we could see here that I just created a WLAN profile test. And even if I just click here on the three dots, it would actually give you a little bit more information on the information or the configuration that's been pushed. So from here, you could actually control or have all the information of all the changes that are being made on Central. This is not only useful just to see or to have a log of all the changes, but it would actually tell you if something's been going wrong. So for example, if you want to update a device and for some reason the configuration is not pushing, the chances are that all that information of why the change is not being pushed or why the device is not being synchronized or stuff like that, you could start seeing on the audit trail the reason for that. And you could always see, for example, on the different configuration changes that you can make, you could also start seeing the different changes of the configurations or what the last change of configuration was. So this is also a very powerful tool that can help us for the troubleshooting part and make sure we have everything, all the changes and everything like that we have them as we want them to. And then on the tool side, we have different tools to start troubleshooting from the cloud. We can do some network changes. We can even send troubleshooting commands from within uh, the cloud. So you could just, for example, select the different devices. If we just want to select multiple devices that you want to send this particular commands to, or then just create different commands. You could select from the different commands that we have here. We can just get that information, add them, and then run the commands onto the APs. So you could actually start running troubleshooting commands and troubleshooting from the cloud without you needing to be on site or actually having to have physical connection onto the devices. So you could start doing everything from here. And we even have console access to the different devices. So you could just start creating or having a console access as you would if the switch or the devices were being managed locally. You could just create a different session, a new session, create a console connection, and then actually start monitoring your devices or sending troubleshooting commands from within the cloud. So this is one of the very important parts also from that covers Aruba Central, is that we're not only monitoring the connections that are up and down, but we could actually start taking action from the cloud to troubleshoot without even having to be on site. This helps a lot if you have multiple sites, for example, you have them distributed. You do not have to have or wait until a specific person is on site to start the troubleshooting. You could actually start doing it from here, which has been very valuable for our different customers across the globe. Sorry if it's being too much information, but hopefully this helps you see the power that Aruba Central has and then just solve a lot of the questions that you might have. Another important part that we have is the reports. We could actually generate different reports from within Aruba Central, so you could actually start seeing that information, export the information that you have from Aruba Central and just leveraging all the information that we already have. For this, we have 5 different categories and 24 different reports that we can make. These reports are pre-configured, so you could actually just see what information those reports are gonna show. So if you want to see, for example, if I want to see a client usage, or if you want to see a network infrastructure report, you could just click from it and go through all the process of programming. So, but if you're not sure what type of information or if it's the right report for the information that you're looking for, you can just click here on preview, and this will give you just a view of the type of information that you would get from this particular report. So you can make sure that this is the information that you really need. And once that information is if it's like the right report for the information you want to see, you can just select on it, click on it, and then just go for next. And we can create different reports for the different devices or different groups within the organization. Uh, as I was mentioning before, not only the alerts and events can be benefited by the right grouping of your devices, but also the reporting side. You can create a general report for all your infrastructure, or if you want to see for a particular site all the information, all the infrastructure or the devices that you have there, you could just click on it. It would just depend on how you want to see that information and how much in detail you want to go for that particular information. So you could just create, for example, if I just want to create an infrastructure inventory of the whole account. I'll just click all on groups. And then we have different ways of seeing this information. We can create for the last day, the last 7 days, the last 30 days, or you could even create a custom range of dates where you want to see that information from. So it just depends on the information you want to see in your report, but I'll just leave it on the last day. And then we have different ways of generating these reports. We can create a report right now for like a one time and just get it right now. We can create a one time later and then choose the date and time where we want this report to be generated. Or we could actually program these reports so that they are continuously being generated from Aruba Central without you even having to log in into the platform. So if you would like to see, for example, the infrastructure inventory every month to see if something has changed, let's say you had replacement, you added new equipment, whatever the reason might be, you could just select to get it every month. You could actually select the starting date. So let's say the first of every month, I would like this report. You could even select the time, so where this report is going to be generated. And once you've selected uh, the values, you can just add a name. You can add an email where you want to get these reports on. And then we have two different emails formats where you could just get a PDF or a CSV for you later on to be able to manage that information or manipulate that information, or you could even choose both. So once you've chosen the right parameters, you can just click on generate, and then that report will be programmed. So you can start actually generating as much reports as you want, and then they will be stored in the platform itself again. So if you're constantly generating all these reports, because that information on Aruba Central is stored for up to 3 months, once you've generated these reports, they're going to be stored in Aruba Central. So you can always go back, view those reports, or even send them again through email um, to a particular person for this client. So if you want to see like the application visibility report and you want them, we've seen in organizations when they just click on the different labels. So if they go on, like for example, the APs on the first floor, it's for the finance team, for example. And then you just want to see like the clients, their usage, and what type of applications they're using. We've seen in different customers where this information is valuable for the managers, so they just get sent out directly from Aruba Central, that report, without even having to have access onto the platform. So this is another way where we could actually generate different reports and actually start getting all that information from the platform without even actually having to give them any access onto our networking platform. Because we know that giving access to the wrong people on the platform, not because they would intentionally do something, but it's just from here we can manage everything. So if you make a change, it could actually have a very big impact onto your network. So this is also a very useful thing to have, just different reports and different types of exporting information from within Aruba Central. Another very important thing that we can do from Aruba Central is the firmware management, or where all that information or all the different devices, the firmware that they're on, that could be managed through Aruba Central. We have different ways of doing this. We have what we call our set compliance, where you could actually configure the firmware version that all devices should be on. So you could create a site compliance for the whole account, or you could do it at a group level, where you could actually just actually select a different firmware version that all devices should be on. So the way this works is that if you have a set compliance turned on and you want to onboard, for example, a new device onto your network, let's say a new AP, that AP, the first thing that it's going to do once it's connected and has access onto the internet, first is going to check if it's subscribed onto any account on Aruba Central. Once it finds itself subscribed to an account, it would actually check if there's a firmware compliance set on the account. And once that AP checks that there is a firmware compliance and he's not meeting the requirements, the first thing they would do is that it would upgrade or downgrade to the set version on the rule. And once it's upgraded and it's ready to go, it would move on to downloading the whole configuration. And this way uh, we could actually see that all our devices, or make sure that all our devices are in the firmware version that they should. And from here, you can manage all for APs or gateways and even switches if you want to do the firmware compliance. But you could also trigger upgrades from within Aruba Central, and we have the different ways of doing it. You could just do the standard upgrade time, where it will be like the standard way of doing the upgrade, where you need a maintenance window to upgrade all your devices. You can trigger it for it to be upgraded right now, or you could even program it for when your maintenance window is set to. So you could actually just program it before, just to make sure that your upgrade, or your upgrade is at the time set for that firmware version, or for firmware upgrade window, maintenance window. Or you could upgrade them at the moment, or we have what we call the live the live upgrade. This would be an advanced license feature, but with the live upgrades, we could actually reduce or even remove the need for maintenance windows for the upgrades. So once the APs or the switches would actually start upgrading themselves without impacting or trying to impact at least the network performance at the time. So from within here, we could actually start managing everything from firmware. And because it is our cloud platform, different to other types of platforms, even Airwave or switching or instant APs, all the different firmware versions are loaded onto Aruba Central. That's something that Aruba takes care of. So you just have to select the right version, or you could even see the recommended version for the different devices, and just upgrade to that version without needing to go through the whole process of going through ASP, downloading the firmware version, uploading it, and then upgrading. You could actually just click on it and then set that upgrade for all of the devices. So yeah, that's also a very important part on our management site. And with this, before, I think I'm just gonna set time for questions afterwards. But before moving into that, I just wanted to touch up on what we called our automation, sorry, the power of automation within Aruba Central. We have 100% extensibility of programmability within Aruba Central, and we have different ways of achieving this. We have what we call our REST APIs, which is our traditional way of requesting and just receiving information from the platform itself. We have different, or a very big portfolio of APIs, from that it's called Application Programming Interface, which for you guys that do not know what this means, basically APIs is a standard in the industry where we convert information from one platform to the other, so we can share information from within platforms on the programming side, and even translate information from like a computer language to a human readable language. So with the use of APIs, we could actually export or even import information onto Aruba Central from a third-party integration, and that being a custom-made dashboard for different workflows, or through different tools that you might already be using, tools such as I don't know, SolarWinds, ServiceNows, stuff like that. You could actually start pulling all that information from within Aruba Central. And the REST APIs is the most common, most standard way of doing it, which is we use the standard JSON format, or the JSON way of structuring data. And with this, you could actually start getting all the information from Aruba Central and generating even your own reports. If you want to just create more specific reports that you're not seeing in Aruba Central, if you want to export more in-depth information of things that you are seeing in Aruba Central, but you're not seeing the way of exporting it, the chances are we can do that through APIs. So we could actually start creating your own dashboards, your own integrations, so you can leverage all the information that we have already in Aruba Central and just exporting them into different dashboards or into different tools that you may already be using, which is a very standard way of doing it from a programming side of looking at things. And this will also give you the ability to just export or even change configurations from within Aruba Central without even having to have access to the whole platform. So you can even create a new SSID without needing to go through the whole workflow of Aruba Central. You could just push down the configuration and the changes will be done immediately, sometimes even faster than if you would go through the whole workflow within the platform itself. We have the webhooks, which is a push notifications where Aruba Central would just send information and would not receive any type of information from you, which is what we were talking a little bit about on the alerts and events configuration, where you could actually create or you Central will send out real-time notifications for the different alerts that are happening from within the platform. There's different third-party platforms that you could use for these webhooks. For example, Slack is one of them. We could use ServiceNow, different third-party applications for a more controlled environment where you could actually start creating your own channels of communication so you could get all the specific information from Aruba Central is through webhooks. And we have a third way of programmability within Aruba Central, which is called API streaming APIs. The difference between streaming APIs, webhooks, and REST APIs is that, first of all, REST APIs is just more a request response way. So you actually have to ask Central for information for Central to send it back to you. So you need to have that active engagement with the platform. On the webhooks, you'll just use different tools to get that information from Central. And with the streaming APIs, we can have more real-time information from within the platform. Not only the alerts and events, but we can have information on presence, analytics, location of devices, um, audit, and everything like that. We could actually start seeing all that information from Central. And the way that we do this is we also use a Google standard to get that information. And the way of doing is you have to create in a programming side a tunnel connection from your application through Central. You create a tunnel of communication. This tunnel can be open for 7 days, and then you could always refresh it so it's always open. And once that tunnel of communication is open, every time there's a change in Aruba Central, you'll get that change or that information sent to you through the streaming APIs. So this helps us have a real time exchange of information from Central to a custom dashboard. And because it is a standard in programming language, you could create a more dynamic or more accurate dashboards for the different ways of using this. So let me give you an example that something that was used during COVID in Mexico City. We have multiple APs all around the city, and we were actually using the streaming APIs to get information on the different location of the devices being connected onto our APs in the city. So we could actually see which are the areas that were not capable of going in lockdown, or which are the areas that were more populated and stuff like that. So the government could actually take action from the information that was already in Aruba Central, sending back through streaming APIs, and you could actually see a dashboard or of the areas within the city that were most populated, and then take action of sending vaccines and stuff like that. So this is just one of the multiple examples of things that we can do using the APIs through Aruba Central. which can actually be very useful, not only for monitoring purposes, but for actually making some changes. And with this, I would just like to show you one of the different integrations that I've actually made. Uh, we're using, for example, Trello, which is the application that um, that we're using for a ticketing system. But this is actually real-time information that it's been sent out through Central, where once the alerts have been configured, and once an event has been triggered, you could actually create a different event within your ticketing system, and for example see that an AP was disconnected, for example. So you could actually see more information on the alerts and events. You can see a little bit more information or more specific information on this event itself, and you do not need to be inside Aruba Central, or you could actually be alerted on easily and just say like an AP was disconnected before even the end users are complaining about it. So this is also a part of very important tools, or various things that we can do with Aruba Central, not just from within the platform, but the idea is that you could leverage all that information that it's already being generated, it's already being used within the dashboard, and take advantage of it. And it can be very simply made. This is just using webhooks, and I'm using Trello because it is the tool that we could use. But if you're using, I don't know, like let's say Monday or SolarWinds and stuff like that, you could actually just make the connection and help Central help you have an easier way of managing the whole networks. So it's just like a little bit of all the things that we can do from Aruba Central, and just leverage all that information from within here. So with that, I think we can open it up to questions, because I think I've just showed you a lot of information from within here.
Well, you did a great job, Alejandra. Thank you so much for your dense presentation. But what I really enjoyed was it was user friendly, intuitive. And we did have a question. It looks like Elliot, which is our solutions engineer manager, he actually answered that question, and and so did your teammate Don. So I think we're good to go there. I have unmuted the audience if they want to chime in and ask any questions, provide any feedback. But before you do so, I just want to let you know that we are going to provide a recording of this session, and we are also going to send out a feedback survey. Your feedback is very valuable to us. This is the first training series that the local commercial team out of in Southwest United States has hosted. So we just want to make sure that we're doing a good job and we're meeting your requirements. So please take the time to send back your valuable feedback, and we really appreciate your attendance and participation today. With that being said, if anybody has any questions, please unmute yourself and let us know what we can share with you.